Hey everyone, it's Dr. Ramani. Welcome back to this YouTube channel on narcissism and narcissistic relationships and all the confusion. And we're going to be talking about a specific kind of confusion today. And that is the confusion between pity and love when you're in a narcissistic relationship. There are lots of reasons beyond the practical that it is difficult to end or disconnect or disengage from a narcissistic relationship. The practical stuff is obviously stuff like money, children, family ties, culture, religion. Many people in these circumstances will say, were it not for these circumstances and the bigger problems that would come if they were to leave or to end the relationship or disengage from it, they would definitely be out. They are very clear that they do not love the narcissistic person, that they want nothing to do with them. They see it all clearly, right? There are also the fear-based reasons that can make it difficult to leave a narcissistic relationship. And these fear-based reasons are real. The fear of vindictiveness, smear campaigns, post-separation abuse, reputational harm, physical danger. It's basically a long list of realistic fears of what could happen if you were to leave or disengage from one of these relationships. And that may actually seem like more trouble to have to face down these fears than the problems that were happening in the relationship. Again, these are people who say, I definitely don't love this person, but I'm afraid. I'm afraid of them. I'm afraid of what's going to happen. And they may find themselves in more of a place of appeasing, of giving in, of dodging all the abuse. And again, would say that they may not love the narcissistic person. They kind of see it clearly. And if there's a version of events that could happen to get them out of the relationship without significant harm to them or the people they care about, that they would. Then, of course, there are the non-practical reasons for that make it difficult to leave. And these include things like hope that the relationship or that they will change. You know it won't. And love. Yeah, love. And that love is real to the person who's experiencing it in a relationship. If it was you, you would say, I don't know what to tell you. I still love them. So leaving this relationship is not easy. In intimate relationships, it may be love around shared history. It may be lust more than love. It may be attraction. It may be routine. I can't sit here and question whether somebody's telling the truth about love. Love is an emotion, and that makes it subjective, which means it is a person's own experience of something. In family relationships, it may be the lingering trauma bond that feels like love. It may also be the love for the overarching sense of family or family unit that is felt like some kind of, that you might associate with the love being love for the narcissistic person. It may be ingrained lifetime communication, that it is your mother, you have to love your mother, or it's your parent or sibling, that you're supposed to love these people, right? Whatever it is, you believe that you love them, maybe in part because the world told you you do. But then, and this is what this video is about, is that last confusing, tricky frontier called pity. Pity is one of the toughest emotions to manage in a narcissistic relationship. Now, Merriam-Webster defines pity as sympathetic sorrow for a person who's suffering, distressed, or unhappy. When we dig into that definition, we are seeing that pity is actually empathy or compassion for a person who is going through something. It is a little more subtle than that sort of pathetic-y feel to pity that goes beyond empathy. It's sort of a damn, like you are a sad little person. But because there is such a strong, compassionate, and empathic core to pity, it starts to drift into the lane of stuff like love and other seemingly positive emotions. Most people would not think of pity as a positive emotion. And most of us would not want people to generally take pity on us. But frankly, by a textbook definition, if a friend brought us soup and was sad for us if we were sick, that implies pity. But in regular beyond the dictionary talk, pity is worse. It's, by definition, it's a power difference, right? We pity someone we view as lacking something, who is below us and sort of needs our help, right? We may feel pity on an injured animal. We may feel pity on a person who doesn't have enough to eat or doesn't have a place to live. We may feel pity for people who are experiencing a plight in their life, such as famine or a war happening where they live. We may feel pity towards a person who has experienced multiple tragedies or had multiple tragedies happen to them, and nothing ever seems to go right for them in their lives. And pity would mobilize us to compassion, which means helping them. And we may feel tense if we can't help them, and a little better when we can. Pity is also coupled with worry. Things like, are they going to be okay? Or I wish I could do more. So then let's take this pity thing and let's pivot it into the narcissistic relationship. And reflect on a narcissistic relationship you have, or you have had in the past, where pity was operating. This most often operates when it's vulnerable narcissism, right? At one level, you see the self-centered, unempathic, entitled, manipulative, grandiose, arrogant, passive-aggressive person. It's unmistakable, and you actually don't really like seeing them or spending time with them. But simultaneous to seeing that, you feel pity for them. You might see someone that's always sort of psychologically fumbling. It's sort of sad and pathetic how they really believe their own hype. And especially as the vulnerable narcissistic person gets older or lacks some of the societal stuff that a person needs to be successful, for example, money or job or a capacity to care for themselves, or just fails to launch or has lots of big dreams and big ideas and nothing comes of them. Given that most people stuck in narcissistic relationships and experiencing narcissistic abuse are often very empathic, compassionate, kind, and make lots of allowances for other people, the pity may become a core governing emotion in the relationship. And that pity can confuse you because it can feel so much like love, a sort of pulling at the heartstrings. But it's a very weird emotion because even though it may pull at your heartstrings, at the same time, you may also feel like a simultaneous sense of disgust. It's like two foods that don't go together. But that pity, that drive in you to want to help them, to feel bad for them, to feel guilty about leaving them, it can register or be experienced or feel like love, especially since love gets so contorted by the narcissistic relationship. We are often told that love is utter self-sacrifice and giving up on ourselves and becoming what the other person wants. So the sense of pity can drive this sense that you may love this person. There's a sort of trifecta in narcissistic relationships: guilt, grief, and pity. Though, I have to say, even on the Dr. RAMANI network, one woman's question there reminded us that it is actually a quad of guilt, grief, pity, and shame. But it's a swirl of mostly negative emotions that leave us always feeling bad. Bad about what we are doing, as though we are bad, sad, and most importantly, finding it really difficult to emotionally perceive these relationships clearly. Not all of you feel this way. It's not, again, there's a lot of variation in narcissistic relationships. Some of you feel absolutely no pity for the narcissistic person. The harm you experienced was too much. The narcissistic person is doing too well. We often don't feel as much pity for the grandiose or even the malignant folks because they seem to be better put together or doing well. But pity is a big one if you're in a relationship with a vulnerable narcissistic folks, and even with aging narcissists who seem that they've burned bridges with and lost everyone. But then it's on you to see it clearly. Pity is pity, and it's separate from love. When it feels hard to disengage or cut ties because you feel pulled by that compassionate, sympathetic, but also pathetic draw to not abandon them or help them out, that's not love. And it may be a you thing in the best of possible ways. Your empathy and compassion and kindness. But that's those things, and that's not necessarily love. Sometimes just knowing that can lift you out of inaccurate characterizations of yourself as codependent and then untangle the two sets of emotions. You may still find it hard, if not impossible, to disengage when you pity them. But when you see it as pity, you may also feel less passive and even foolish or shameful, but rather see yourself as an empathic person stuck in a bad situation. And much like you may feed a stray cat because you pity it, which is a kind thing to do, you may not quit your job to care for it and give it its own bedroom in your house. Remember that, and perhaps you may stop giving up so much of yourself in the name of pity. And above all else, don't confuse pity with love in a narcissistic relationship. Thanks again.